Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation to come and share a little bit about what we've been doing on our project and how blessed we are to be able to travel across the country and share a little bit about what we're doing. And Wayne, when he asked me to come do this, I must have misread the email. I thought he said an hour, but he had the dots in the wrong place instead of 10 minutes. So I got to give him a little hard time about that. But when we talk about the quest for soil health, you know, lots of farmers and ranchers across the nation, really, you can't open a publication nowadays that is not at least once, twice, or three times somewhere about soil health cover crops. So there's a big quest about the information. Now, this morning, you heard from Jason that talked a little bit about the number one question that we all get, and that's economics. Well, he done a really good job talking about that, but I want to talk about the number two question that I get. I normally get three, and I'm going to talk about number two, and that's water, and how cover crops are going to affect the water in my soil. Now, also, you heard from Dr. Martinez that talked about a semi-arid climate. Well, there's nothing semi about arid in Oklahoma where I'm at. I want to make that perfectly clear. Since September 20th of last year, I haven't had a rain over 1 inch until 3 weeks ago, and I got 1 4/10 inches. We had a dance, we had a celebration. We're so excited. Unfortunately, the weather at home right now has been around 100 to 110 degrees, so that doesn't last very long. So when I started in this project 7 years ago, the big question and all the producers around me was, well, if I plant a cover crop, I can't even raise one crop. How am I going to grow something year round? And so I knew that, first of all, I had to be proven that it would work. But if I was going to go out and speak and share, like Rob just talked about, to other producers, I better have some data down. Unfortunately, it wasn't there yet. So this is one of the first field days that we had back in around 2011 and 12. You'll see that the cover crop is burning up. It's pretty well like that right now at home. You see there in the foreground where I'm standing, there's some bare soil. So we left that bare to simulate in Oklahoma. At that time, most people would plow their ground and it would look like this shortly after wheat harvest till planting time. So I wanted to have it bare and see what the results was. I have a moisture probe in the ground. There's a temperature probe there by my foot. So I wanted to track the water and the temperature. In the spring, a good friend of mine, Jim Johnson at the Noble Research Institute, came out, and lo and behold, do you see that square there? This was in the wheat following the cover crop that year. Now remember, we're in a large drought. So the wheat's not very good outside the plot, but if you can clearly see inside the plot, it's worse. Jim immediately asked me, well, what's going on here? Well, I looked at him like, you're the research institute. And so he immediately got a soil probe, and we started probing, and we found a hard pan down very shallow in that spot. And he said, well, you got a hard pan? No. Well, there's a restriction. No, I know my soil. That's not it. So he walked outside that, and the probe would go all the way in. And he said, something's up. So I immediately called my NRCS people. They came out. They'd been in our project all along. I said, I need a little help. I want to measure something here. Well, when they pulled the core out, immediately we knew what had happened. We knew that from the monitor that we had, that the soil moisture, the green line is the cover crop, the stubble is the bare soil. We knew we started even money, and we knew with the summertime temperatures and stuff, it was going down, and they were parallel. But what we didn't realize going on when we pulled the cores out, oh, I forgot, this is the temperature, and that's very important at home. If you'll see that the air temperature is the blue line, stubble temperature is the purple line, and the cover crop's the green line. We quickly learned that there could be 15 to 25, 30 degrees difference in temperature at the soil where we had it covered versus bare. That's very important. What most of us at home at that point in time didn't realize was it's very easy to see when it's raining, and it's very hard to see evaporation leaving. And people across the country have terrible time seeing that. And we knew what was happening. But when we pulled the cores, I was really astonished. And so this is down to 38 inches. We measured the total volume of the water in the core. So inside that square where there was no cover, there was 4.6 inches of water. What Jim was hitting was the dry layer. Okay, so when he moved outside, the reason he didn't hit the dry layer, because it was deeper than his probe. We had 7.52 inches of water in the profile. Now, I had heard from a seed salesman that's here in the building once said that, you know, if you plant my cover crops, they're moisture neutral. And I got to looking at that, and I thought, well, maybe that wasn't propaganda. And maybe we ought to take Keith's word at, you know, let's take this a little further step. So we just start at that point trying to decide what to do next year. And what we decided was we'll GPS our points, we'll have us some plots, and we'll do it multiple times in the same field. So the blue line is our cover crop, the orange lines is where we just have no cover. But you'll notice that the 5.2 and the 8.5, we have a 3-inch deficit. Now, once again, that's just contradicting what I said, but I grazed that cover crop. So I let it go to reproductive mode. And so now we know that we're going to use some water. But the amazing thing that we found, that was in September 30th when we pulled the blue. When February 22nd, we came back and pulled a second set of cores. And lo and behold, look at that line. We're a little above or even money. Immediately, I knew we were on the right track. I knew that our aggregation, our water infiltration was going up. And when we do get rain, the key is to get it in the soil. Now, we knew that bare soil was not going to infiltrate, because every time it showered, water stood there. So this year, in the next 7 months, I was looking at my calendar a little bit ago, I'm going to travel from Oklahoma, several field days there, Kansas, I'm doing several field days in Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, California, and Delaware. As I talk to producers all across the country, this data will not apply to very many other than in my area. But the key that I want to bring out is we've got to watch on our farms and learn. We have to have help from science, from SARE, other groups that helps us quantify what we're seeing. And that's exactly what Rob was saying just a little bit ago. So that when I tell a producer, I may be short of water going in, but I've took cash out of that cover crop in grazing, but I'm going to gain that water back when it rains, if it rains, and once again, it has to rain for this to work, and we all know that. But by the time I get to the harvest on further out to the left of that graph, every time I measure, I'm water ahead. For western Oklahoma, north and south of me, that's critical. 200 miles east of me, it starts to changing. I have people that call me and say, well, I want to plant a cover crop so it'll be dry enough for me to plant corn. I think you cut out. Would you But lo and behold, we can plant higher populations and different species, and we can help that producer out. If he's got water to waste and he won't pipe it out to me, we can solve that problem. So it's very important that we get to understand the science so that as producers like me go out and share to other producers, and they are eager to learn, they're very curious, but they're also very eager to say, are you sure? Do you know for a fact? Because you kind of got to nudge them along a little bit. Not everybody's as excited about this as I might be. So the next set of slides I'm going to show you is this year. Like I said, we're in a D4 drought in my county. We had a devastating fires in April, burned 3,000 acres of rangeland, gobs of fence. We lost homes, we lost cattle, we lost 440 square miles in Oklahoma, in Dewey County. So when it did rain after the fire, I've got to have something for my cattle to graze on. So when the first shower, I immediately planted some cover crop where it had cover crops last year. I was going to go to a cash crop, but I got to have something to eat. So this is my hired hand, Carson. We're in a D4 drought. Now in this test, this is an experiment that I'm doing. I've done what they call bale grazing. So last fall when we were grazing a cover crop, I unrolled several bales of hay and fed where Carson is standing, about 2 bales wide. I was driving by there here a while back, and look at that. I mean, I've got some forage for some cows in a D4 drought. So I asked Carson, and you can't see the big picture here, but I had him move to his left. There's a road to your left, I guess there. So I had him move over a little bit further, and if you'll notice, he's smiling in both of them pictures, and we're real happy about that. And I had him take another 12 foot. And that's kind of the way I feel. See, we need science to help me a little bit here. I'm pretty sure I know what's going on because I'm loading the system with carbon. I'm putting more manure and urine there because my cattle were fed there. But I also know that my water infiltration rate's a lot higher. But see, I can tell that to my producer friend, and he'll say, well, was it a localized rain event? That's a possibility. He said, did water run down there and stand there? Well, you know, it could have if it would have rained. So the connectivity that we have to the science world to research is very important, Wayne, because if we're going to get the mass of the producers, it's easy to get a guy like Jimmy because I'm always taking risk. I've always wanted to do something different. But not everybody's that way. If you ask my wife, Ginger, she's the anchor on our farm. She don't want to try anything. She wants to stay in her comfort zone, and I'm jerking, let's try this. Not all producers are that way. They need a comfort zone because we've had the easy button for years. You know, we harvest grain, we haul it to the closest grain bin, we take what they'll give us. We can't do that in agriculture anymore. We've got to look for more markets, more opportunities. And we have to have the research that will help Jimmy explain this a little bit better. And, you know, I'm still very proud of that cover crop, and my cows are really liking that right now. But would you rather have that to graze on, that to graze on, or that? I know what my cows are going to like for the longevity of the grazing project. And just think what my whole field could look like when I get soil health, and I get my soil organic matter, and I get my carbon up to this level over the whole field. My neighbors are going to think there really is a localized rain event because the rest of them right now, and we talked about this at lunch, are measuring for nitrates, prussic acid. Their feed is burned up, it's short, it's brown, and they keep driving by my place, but they don't understand. And that's going to be the key to the future, is how we help them understand. Thanks a lot.